He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter.
That's right, and welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. We're ready for episode number 88. And I don't mean to inject politics into the start of the show, but I will, because one thing that we got used to for 8 years in the Obama administration was him releasing his brackets. Trump didn't do so, and I don't think Biden did. But Obama released his brackets, and it was a snooze fest. All four number one seeds got to the Final Four, and he's from Illinois, and had Illinois winning it all.
Well, Chap, you know, I'm no politician, but guess what? I'm going to have a pretty chalk bracket, and I'm going to have Michigan winning it all. So to make you feel really presidential tonight.
Wow. Okay, well, I'll just say this, and it's coming up in our first chapter. My Final Four and my bracket is not as boring as Dennis projects or suggests his will be, and certainly not as boring as Obama's was. I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in to episode 88, whether you are watching via YouTube, Facebook Live, or Twitch. Thanks to all you who are also listening to the podcast, which is available on the day of each show at about 11 o'clock via YouTube, via Apple Podcasts, via Google Podcasts, or via Spotify. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate, whether you are on the podcast or via you're watching. Of course, you can't participate if you're on the podcast, but make sure you like and subscribe no matter how you are consuming our show. And if you're wondering what the heck we're talking about, well, let's take a look at today's book. And as you can see in the second chapter, the Detroit Lions got themselves a new quarterback, Tim Boyle. He used to be on the Packers, and there's one guy out there who says that he is going to be in serious contention with Jared Goff for the starting job. And wow, Dennis is already laughing? We'll tell you what this expert has to say about Tim Boyle. In the third chapter, the Patriots, after making all these moves, are they back? And Deshaun Watson, how much trouble is he in after all of these allegations continue to surface? In the fourth chapter, the Houston Rockets, we talked about them in my major wager on Tuesday. They lost again on Tuesday in blowout fashion. They lost again yesterday in blowout fashion, making lots of folks out there some money. They've lost 18 in a row. But could they turn things around tomorrow against the Pistons? And then in the fifth chapter, we've got the major wager. But we are going to start off, Dennis, with the first chapter, and that takes us to, as you might expect, March Madness, college basketball. It is underway. We already have a final in the first four where Texas Southern took out Mount St. Mary's. The biggest game of the first four is later today when Michigan State plays UCLA, and we all want to fill out the perfect bracket. We want to fill it. We want to enter those contests for $1 million or $100,000, or we want to have the best brackets in our pool, things like that. And so we want to make sure that if you have any questions about your brackets, that you send them in via the comments in YouTube or the comments in Facebook, and we'll read them and we'll try to give you our best guesses on what we would do. But Dennis, let's start off with us, and let's start off with you. Who do you have in your Final Four, and why?
Well, this Gonzaga team all year long, you know, watching them. I know they didn't get to play Baylor, but watching them take on Iowa, you know, they only had that one single-digit game, and that was in early December in the Jimmy V Classic, and that was against West Virginia. You know, BYU was up on them at 12 in that, what do they call that, West WCC final, and they came back and beat them by a dozen. But this is not like the Zags team from a couple of years ago where you're like, oh, they're like a little team that doesn't have – they got 3 legit first-round picks, and they could have the top overall pick. And Suggs probably going to go to Cunningham, but he's one of the top 2. So the point I'm making here is this team is stacked, you know. And so that's why I've got Gonzaga. If they were in the ACC, everybody would be straight up tripping, oh, they're one of the greatest teams of all time. Because they're out on the West Coast, people are fading them. And I'm not. I think they've been the best team, and I think that they will go wire to wire for the first time since '76. I watched more college basketball this year than I have in 15 years. And the Big Ten, night in and night out, was just awesome to watch. It was great theater over everything. Detroit sports going on, anything going on. I just watched Big Ten and Big 12 basketball. So my Elite Eight has 7 of the 8 teams are from the Big Ten and Big 12, with the exception being Gonzaga. Wow. I've got Ohio State and Illinois on the other side. I love those teams. And you know what? I am picking Michigan, and I do feel a little bit like it's a little bit with my heart here. But I think each individual game here, I still like their team. I think they can play defense, and I know all the way through, starting if it ends up being LSU, if they take on Florida State, they have to play Texas or Alabama in the Elite Eight. I mean, they could lose any of those games, but you know what? They can win all of those games as well. And hopefully they get a little help. Maybe Georgetown can come up and give them a break there. So that's what happened a couple of years ago when they ended up getting to the championship game. Texas A&M beat North Carolina, and Loyola Chicago, Sister Jean, they ended up having to take on her. That was a break. So hopefully they can get a couple breaks along the way. I'm buying that. So, but it does feel like a little bit that I'm picking with my heart, but yeah. I really like that team, and I've enjoyed them so much this year. They deserve it. I usually don't pick Michigan. I did pick them the year they went to the championship game and played Villanova, but the only other time I picked them to go to the Final Four before that was the second year with the Fab Five, and I was right. So I've been pretty good picking Michigan. I'm picking them again. So there you go. 3 Big Ten teams: OSU, Illinois, U of M, but I got Gonzaga cutting down the nets.
Well, we do have Gonzaga cutting down the nets in common. I have them winning the West. I have them winning it all. I think they'll win the championship. They're the best team in the country. They've also got the easiest region, which is what you should have when you're the number 1 overall seed. So, yeah, I've got Gonzaga winning the West and winning it all. In the East, I've got Florida State. In the South, I've got Purdue. And in the Midwest, I've got Illinois. When I look at the East region, which is where Michigan is the number 1 seed, Michigan doesn't have livers. When Michigan is not at 100%, they lose games. Without livers, they're 0-1. Without Eli Brooks, they are 0-1. And when they had him for just 10% of a game, they were 0-1. And so I don't trust Michigan at less than 100% when they don't have a bunch of superstars or even one superstar on this team. They might have maybe 1 first-round pick and Franz Wagner on the squad. I don't trust them to be able to overcome and get out of this region. As I said on Tuesday, I have them losing in their second game to LSU, and if they don't lose in that game, they'll lose to FSU. But I like FSU because I like the experience of Leonard Hamilton. He seems to always take his teams pretty deep in the NCAA tournament, and I like him to do so this year and get to the Final Four. In the South, we know Baylor has not been as good since their Rona pause, and I think they'll continue that trend. Could they lose to a Big Ten team like Ohio State or lose to an SEC team like Arkansas in the Elite Eight? Yes. Could they lose to another Big Ten team like Wisconsin in the second round or North Carolina? Perhaps. I think they're going to lose to another Big Ten team in the Sweet 16, Purdue. I think their size is going to mess with Baylor, and I like them to get the win and beat a choking Ohio State team in the Elite Eight. In the Midwest, I've got Illinois. I've got them going to the championship game and losing. Illinois, they've been the best, if not second best team in the country over the last couple of weeks. And one more thing on Purdue. Let's not forget that there are going to be limited fans in all these arenas throughout the state of Indiana. Purdue is from Indiana, so they're going to have home court advantage in every single game when they play their first game against North Texas, when they eventually play Baylor, when they play Ohio State. The fans are going to be behind the Boilermakers. So that's another reason why I've got Purdue. But I've got Purdue, I've got Illinois, I've got Florida State, and I've got Gonzaga, with Gonzaga, like you, chopping down the nets.
Yeah, pretty gutsy pick, taking Purdue. So I'll give you that, going in with guts. What seed's Purdue?
They're a 4 seed.
Yeah, there's not many 4 seeds that are going through and making the Final Four. So that's
there's only pick. One because that's what I predicted.
Yeah, well, good luck, chap. I'm just saying overall, not many people have the guts to, take 3 seeds. Most people just take 1 and 2 seeds. So that's a good job. As far as some of these big time upsets that you look at, one thing for me, I said how much college basketball, like almost every night I'm watching the games. There were 2-3 games a day on the weekends. And so just tons of college basketball. But most of these teams I haven't seen play. So you go through them and people are like, when I see people over there telling you, well, I got to tell you about this team. Like, how many games are you watching? I mean, how many games can you possibly watch? I mean, I get like Seth Davis and those guys, but I'm talking about your average like sports talk guy. Anytime I hear people trying to tell like they know everything that's going on,
I've watched Colgate play 7 times this year, and then trust me.
Like Colgate size, but I do like. I think Winthrop, and they might be a challenge for your Purdue team because I do think they are sitting there, and I do have Purdue advancing against Winthrop. But why I like Winthrop, man, they're deep, they're fast, they play an unusual style that teams aren't ready for. And you know what? They lost 1 game this year, and they're 43-4 in their last 47. And Villanova lost their best player,
their point guard.
Yeah, Gillespie. So Colin Gillespie. So if you're looking for a big time upset there, I really like Winthrop.
I've got Winthrop also because of the point guard reason.
I was tempted to take him over your spoiler makers, but I'm looking down at my bracket right now. I didn't do that. But if you're looking for that double-digit seed that is going to advance, certainly if you're looking for that 12-5 one, that's where you want to go right there in the South.
Okay.
And take Winthrop.
Yeah, I've got a couple as well. Initially, when I made my bracket, I had 3 number 14 seeds winning in the first round, and I eventually chopped that down to 2. I mean, I was listening to Bracketology on Sunday, and I think it was Jay Billis was saying, oh, yeah, Colgate's definitely going to beat Arkansas. I was thinking, wow, Arkansas seemed like a pretty good team down the stretch. And then I looked and saw Arkansas had won 9 out of their last 10, and I was listening to the Yahoo Sports podcast, and Pete Thamel was like, yo, that's just not going to happen. Arkansas is going to win. So I'm back on Arkansas winning. But I like Eastern Washington against Kansas. Kansas has some coronavirus issues. They're having at least one starter not make the trip. That's a problem. And, when you're in quarantine, you're not going to be practicing and things like that. So they could be stale. Eastern Washington had a pretty good year in whatever Far West Conference they were in. I like them as a 14 seed to win. The other one that I had was Abilene Christian over Texas. It's an in-state rivalry game. Certainly for Texas it will be. I think that Texas's Big 12 championship win was fraudulent because they played a completely gassed Oklahoma State team who had played the last 2 or 3 days. Meanwhile, Texas didn't have to play the previous day because Kansas quit because of their coronavirus issues. So I don't think that Texas is as good as their number 3 seed suggests, and the committee likes to reward teams for winning conference championships. I think that if both teams had played the previous day, perhaps Texas wouldn't have got to the championship game, but they would have lost Oklahoma State. But I like Abilene Christian as an upset in that game. And I've also got a Cinderella to go to the Elite Eight. USC. Evan Mobley is a top 5 NBA pick. He could be perhaps the number 2 pick in the draft. He's part of a gigantic front court for USC. And I think that they're going to give problems to whoever they face in their 11 seed game. That's determined by Drake versus Wichita State or whoever they're playing today. Then their next game, I have them beating Eastern Washington because I don't think Kansas is going to be a factor. But if they do face Kansas, it's going to be a weakened coronavirus weakened team. And then their next game after that will be Iowa. And so you've got an NBA pick in Mobley, a one-and-doneer diaper dandy against Luka Garza. And I've got Evan Mobley rising up the draft boards, becoming one of those Cinderella guys, leading his team all the way to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I saw the Athletic guy that does their NBA draft. His latest mock draft had the Mobley going to the Pistons at number 2. So there you go. You know how the coronavirus affects my bracket here. The Virginia team's like just getting into the bubble.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to miss a game. They had to bow out of the ACC tournament. They hadn't been able to practice. Mm-hmm. So they're just rolling in there. I think that Ohio team, the 13 seed out of the MAC, I'm going to take the Bobcats to flip the Cavaliers.
Yeah, not only did they have to miss some time last week because of the coronavirus, but we don't know who's showing up for the team. They also, like you mentioned, not only are they showing up today, but I heard that they have to not only test when they get there, but they have to wake up in the middle of the night to take another test, and they haven't been practicing. So all those factors lead me to believe that they're going to be a very rusty team when they face Ohio on Saturday.
Yeah, that's why I ended up taking Creighton there to work it themselves to the Sweet 16. So we'll see what happens there.
Same here. The other thing about this tournament is you got some other players that are out with coronavirus. Georgia Tech's best player is out, and they're facing the Fighting Sister Jeans. So I've got the Fighting Sister Jeans winning that opening round game. Oklahoma's, I think their second leading scorer is out, so I've got Missouri winning that game. So injuries like livers and like Nova's point guard are an issue, but you also have to pay attention to coronavirus when you're filling out your bracket.
Yeah, I'm picking a little bit with my heart with OU, man. I like their point guard, Hughes, I think his name is. I just like watching him play. They got a human eraser, too. I've watched Oklahoma play a couple times, so I'm going to take the Sooners, even though they did lose their player there. But I can understand why people would go with Missouri. So, yeah, man, a lot of different things to look at and factor in when you're getting through and trying to fill out your brackets here. Let's look through the feedback, whether it's the live chat on YouTube or Twitch you can go to, or also on Facebook. Tell us who your Final Four is. You got any questions, what you're looking at, who you're thinking about, all those kind of things. And we read them here on the fifth chapter here. Keith is in the chat. He says, I don't really care anymore. I haven't filled out a bracket in 4 years. I will watch, but I just don't watch college basketball much anymore. I watch Michigan, of course. You know, Keith, I feel you on filling out a bracket. Now, like I fill one out, but I would say in the last 10 years, maybe 3 times I've submitted one with some cash to play. But for the most part, I like the tournament so much. It's nice having a bracket out there, but I don't need one. And like I said, I've only had a couple out there the last couple of years. I won't have any money attached to them. A filled out bracket, although I am playing in I do have some gambling interest going on, which I'm going to get to in the fifth chapter. But I feel you on not filling out a bracket. You know, you get there and everybody's bracket, and
that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun. At least to me.
I understand gambling, Chapman. And also, if you're somebody that is not everybody really likes gambling, and like for me, I don't like the pain of losing more than the satisfaction of winning overall. Now I still do gamble, but I really take it down to lower because the losses get at me too much. So
the losses aren't fun.
It's nice just being able to sometimes just fill it out and not have to jump in there and play every single year. So I feel you, Keith.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it, I mean, when you're playing with friends, you're in a pool, maybe you put in $5 or $10 and you get, it could be 10 people, it could be 100 people, depending on who's running your pool. It's fun to be able to compete with others to say, oh yeah, I picked this team. Oh, how come you didn't pick this 10 seed to go all the way to the Elite Eight? Of course I had that. It's fun to have those bragging rights. Yes, it is demoralizing when you lose, but it's a different form of betting because it's just one bet. You place your $10 stake or $100 stake, whatever your pool is at the beginning, and that's that. Whereas in traditional gambling, you can bet on every single game. Obviously, here in the state of Michigan, you can do that now, bet on every single game, and that's a lot of what fuels March Madness. But for a lot of people, even if they don't care, even if they don't know anything about what's going on, like I watched Justin Rose of Channel 7, Justin Wilting Rose, as I like to call him. Yeah, he had a nice little piece where he went to downtown Royal Oak and was just interviewing random fans and asking them, how far do you think this team is going? What's your strategy? And he interviewed this one woman who said, oh, I've got Virginia winning because I always pick games based on who has the cutest coach. And there's always these stories about office pools where, the secretary who doesn't know anything about sports just says, oh, this team has a cute coach. My granddaughter's going to this school. I have a friend who lives in this state. And then they end up winning the tournament. And that's part of the joy and the frustration of March Madness brackets. I like that part of it.
Yeah, and millions are just like you. There's a few like Keith and I sometimes. Sometimes you put one in, sometimes you don't. All right. Keith says, I think because of the COVID, there's going to be a lot of crazy upsets that even more so this year. That possibility,
Well, one of the possible upsets is I mean, what if Baylor gets upset by coronavirus and loses and has to forfeit because they can't play in their first round game and the 16th seed just marches on? I think we're almost destined to see something like that because the bubble that they have in the state of Indiana is nothing like the airtight bubble that they had in Orlando last summer.
Here's Keith saying he likes Illinois overall to win it. That's what Jelinek says as well. He likes the Illini.
I could see
Paul
it.
W. is talking a little Lions already with a smiley face. He's saying things about Trey Flowers and Michael Brockers and Romeo Aquara. We'll read a little bit more on that one coming up straight ahead, Paul. And he wants us to rate that Lions defensive line now with Aquara. So get your thinking cap on there, Chapman. We will do that. It's always fun to hear the experts talk about college basketball tournament picks. It's fun to predict, but nobody ever holds anybody to the predictions. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
You know what, Keith? I also have there's a couple people in my life. One, both Chapman and I, a former colleague that we worked with all the time, and another one of my friends, they're very similar. Like, these guys will put in 20, 30 brackets. I mean, they're gambling. They're spreading this thing all over. And then when you start talking about, the tournament, they're always like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I had Creighton, in the Elite Eight. It's like, you filled out 30 brackets.
Exactly. Yeah, when I have discussions, like I have a main bracket. So when I was talking a few minutes ago about my Final Four, that's what I was discussing. But I do fill out multiple brackets. I won't brag to my friends about them because in some of these different websites or even with the sporting apps, the sports betting apps now, you can fill out multiple entries. So like, for instance, BetMGM has a completely free contest where if you have a perfect bracket, you get $2 million. So I put a bracket in there. DraftKings has a similar situation. I'm going to put a different one in there because I only need to win $1 million or $2 million from one site. So if I win the $2 million, then perhaps I'll brag about that. But in terms of, what I think is actually going to happen, my main bracket, that's what I'll be discussing on this show and with other people.
Perhaps you'll upgrade the software here on the fifth chapter. I've pinned my bracket to my burner account, G Afternoon 21. So if anybody wants to see the picks there, blow by blow, they can just go there. Mm-hmm. It's also linked up through my main Twitter, so you just have the burner account, which doesn't really make it a burner account because everybody knows who it is at that point. Keith says, man, you're just young, Chapman. Sometimes after like 40 years of filling one out, it runs its course. I get that part as well.
Take 5 minutes.
Jim Clark, I'm sure he's a big Villanova fan. He didn't like the prediction of Winthrop. He didn't like that first round matchup. I bet.
Oh well.
What's going on here? Beth on Facebook says Ohio has a great player. Can't remember the kid's name, but he should be a first round pick. Yeah, you know what? Ohio, the Bobcats there. Look out, Beth. We both, Chapman and I, have them advancing over Virginia.
Yes, we do. All right, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
That gets us to the Detroit Lions. And I was sitting around last night, and I saw a tweet about the Lions picking up a quarterback, a backup quarterback. I say the former Packer signal caller named Tim Boyle. Mm-hmm. And here's the kicker on it, though. A Green Bay reporter says Boyle will push Jared Goff for the starting job. Rolling or trolling there from the Packers reporter, chap.
Yeah, his name is Tom Silverstein from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And you can see the tweet right there. Good signing for the hashtag Lions. He will push Goff for the starting job. And after he sent that tweet, you had Dave Burkett saying, damn Tom, from a Packers beat writer. And Silverstein elaborated on his tweet saying, I'm not saying he'll win it. I'm just saying if he continues to grow like he did from year 1 to year 3, he'll give people something to talk about. Like I said, we never saw if he could transfer his good camp to game action. So there's still a lot for him to prove. And obviously there's there's at least one significant reason why we didn't see him transition from camp to the pros, and that's because Aaron Rodgers, the greatest quarterback of all time, is the starting quarterback for the Packers. But this like
Aaron
to be,
Rodgers, even in the greatest quarterback in Packer history, he's like third.
he's the greatest in Packers history. He doesn't have as many championships, but he's the greatest talent. I obviously
Greatest
he
talent
being
by.
what's that?
Greatest talent, yeah. You said greatest quarterback.
Well,
it sound
yeah.
like he was the greatest quarterback.
Well, no,
all
he
time.
is. Yeah, he's both. But look, I don't live in Wisconsin, so I don't know about the cult figure that is Tim Boyle. And this Silverstein guy says that he's a cult figure. We know just from following the Lions, or if you follow some other team, that throughout preseason games, you'll see a guy do something in the third quarter, the fourth quarter, and then the talk radio phone lines will blow up and say, hey, that 6th-round pick running back had a 70-yard gain against other future pizza delivery guys, and that guy becomes a cult figure for a little bit, and then everybody wants him to start at running back. So I can't say what he was able to do in those preseason games, but I did look up his background and saw that pretty much this guy sucks. There's a reason why he was a third-string quarterback, and I don't even know if he warrants that. In his first 3 seasons of college football, he was at UConn, 1 touchdown, 13 picks, 48.4% completion percentage. He transferred to Eastern Kentucky, improved significantly, but was still bad, 13 touchdowns, 11 picks, went undrafted by the Packers in 2018. And I guess he became a cult figure because of what he did in 2019 in the preseason. 34 of 57, 356 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks, and led all preseason quarterbacks that had at least 50 passes in passer rating. But in 11 games, he's had 4 passing attempts in regular season games, and he's the kneel down guy. Like, they bring him in just to kneel the ball. So... And on top of that, they were so impressed with his kneeling that in 2020, they drafted his replacement for backup quarterback in the first round with Jordan Love. So Tim Boyle was the 3rd-string quarterback with the Packers. Not the 2nd-string pushing Aaron Rodgers, not the heir apparent after 1 year. After 1 year, they said we need to get an heir apparent, so they got Jordan Love. It's clear that this guy is trolling the Detroit Lions fan base. Even if you are as negative as you are, Dennis, on Jared Goff, you know that he's light years better. This 2-time Pro Bowler Goff is light years better than Boyle and will not challenge Goff for a starting job. And I would not be surprised if Boyle gets cut before the start of the season because the Lions upgrade either through the draft or via another backup quarterback.
Yeah, my friend who's a Green Bay Packers fan said he compared him to Darko, except that he wasn't drafted high. Like, they know when he's in there, it's lighting up. He's the human victory cigar. So, it's just fun to see him out there. He's got a rocket arm. It's kind of like, bringing a walk-on in a basketball game. I do know, I didn't watch any of the preseason games with the Packers there, but I do know for at least 4 or 5 years straight, and Drew Stanton was drafted in the 2nd round out of Michigan State, but after every Lions preseason game, Drew Stanton was a Hall of Fame preseason player, and I like Drew Stanton. I like his wife. I like him. He was an awesome guy to.
Do you follow his wife on
and,
Instagram?
I don't, but I did some charity work with the Stantons one time at a pizzeria, and that's when I met him, and they were really cool to me. So I've always rooted for him. I like him, and when he was with Arizona, I was a big Stanton fan. So say all that, man. Like you'd read these, or you'd watch him play a game, and then you'd read all these texts coming in. Here it is, Jim from Farmington Hills. Oh yeah, Farmington Hills, Harrison. That's where he played. Stanton's the greatest. Give him a shot. Give him a shot. So there's a little bit of that going on, except Boyle wasn't drafted.
Yeah, Boyle was not drafted. He was not a starting quarterback at a local school like Stanton was at Michigan State. He was from Eastern Kentucky, and he sucked. So yeah, I don't. This is very surprising that even if you're being a Packers slappy and the Lions are always down, and the Packers have won 13 games in consecutive years, to stick it to the Lions fan base or to try to give them some false hope, this doesn't make sense. I mean, if he wanted to come out and tweet that the Lions are going to have an exciting preseason player, or he was a cult figure in Green Bay, enjoy him in Detroit, I get that. But that's not what he said. I'll put the tweet back up there so everybody can see what he said. He said, good signing for the Lions. He will push Goff for the starting job. Push Goff for the starting job. So that either means that he, like he said in the second tweet, wants to see if he can make some progression, and the progression was so bad that the Packers drafted somebody else in the first round, or he's trolling, or maybe he just thinks that Jared Goff is so bad that even the Packers' third-string quarterback can compete with Goff, a two-time Pro Bowler who's in his mid-20s for the starting job. I just happen to think this is trolling.
Well, remember, some former investment banker beat out Goff for the starting playoff job this year for the Rams. So maybe
and it was the wrong decision. It was because Sean McVay had beef with Goff for whatever reason. It wasn't because he was actually better than Goff.
Well, Goff had a thumb injury too.
Yeah, that
maybe
too.
they did. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they. It's not. You don't play a guy because of a beef. You go in, you play the quarterback who thinks gives you the best chance to win. So. And if you think it was all because of they just didn't see eye to eye, I got news for you there with Jared Goff.
When Goff came in, he was better, and then the second the season ended, they said, "Well, what about Goff?" Well, he's our quarterback for right now, and then boom, he was out of there. They wanted him out of there yesterday.
Yeah. Well, is it something like he was sleeping with McVay's girlfriend or something, or was there something going on like that? Is that why he's out?
I don't know. I would assume not.
I was gonna say hopefully, but hopefully it's not because of his play. Hopefully it was something, off the field with McVay or something that would bode well for the Lions.
Hopefully he was sleeping with McVay's girl.
Something like that, I didn't say his wife.
No, that is true.
I think there was something like that. Some kind of situation like that. Maybe Jelinek can find. Google McVay's girlfriend and Goff. See what you come up with there, Jelinek.
I know
Paul.
I was gonna say I know his girlfriend used to be I think a golf reporter for Fox or Fox Sports, and she was very attractive. But I think that McVay broke up with her.
Yeah, maybe because she was out at twilight with Jared Goff. Paul says, what do you think of the starting defensive line now with Trey Flowers, Brockers, and Romeo Aquara? I guess you'd put Deshaun Hand in the mix there, too, because he would be somebody else on that defensive line. What do you think of that fearsome foursome?
I would say it's not fearsome because we saw 3 out of those 4 on the team last year, although Hand didn't play much. But we saw at least the 2 defensive ends last year, and you had Romeo Aquara with a nice year with 10 sacks, but certainly not Pro Bowl level. You saw Flowers not do much anything with his $95 million contract. The Rams didn't have any use for Brockers anymore. This is not a fearsome foursome. Perhaps they can get coached up because Patricia coached them down, but no, there's no reason to be impressed with this starting defensive line.
Well, it looks good on paper. The problem is the back 7 sucks. I mean, let's be honest. The 3 linebackers that are out there, they're not any good, and nobody in the secondary is either. So, I mean, that's the deal. That looks pretty good. That's a good start, but you need, you're talking about needing at least a few more guys in the back end there, the back 7, and who you
a lot of guys.
I mean, who do you like back there that are the guys that are standing up? Okuda in the second year, maybe?
I'm optimistic that he will improve. I mean, Oruwariye is what he is right now. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, you have to hope he's going to be a backup.
He's a special teams guy.
Will Harris is not a. I mean, there's nobody that's impressive, and they just got through cutting 3 or 4 guys in the back 7.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's all right, on paper here, the defensive line, but they got a lot of work to do in that back 7. All right, we got more coming up here. Hope the Lions don't draft a kicker in the second round. That's for Paul.
They need one now.
He rolls out LOL on that one. Keith said it's not even worth discussing the quarterback. Rashard Perriman is a great under-the-radar signing, though. I can give credit to the Lions when they do something good.
Is your sleepover kicker eligible for the draft?
Yeah, with Nordine?
Yeah. Hey, there you go. 2nd-round pick. SOL.
Yeah, I'm not...
Replace Prater.
Lions go with a free agent there. Perriman is. I'm with you, Keith. 2 years ago when he was with the Bucs, when everybody went down there, Evans was down, he came in and there was like a 4-game stretch with him and Winston. Man, he looked really good. I don't know what happened to him. I got hurt last year, but yeah, he was awesome 2 years ago. I like that. I like Perriman.
Yeah, the Lions, they didn't get a number one receiver with Perriman, but they need warm bodies. They need guys to compete with Tyrell Williams and Quintez Cephas, and Jared Goff has to throw the football to somebody. And obviously, there's the draft, potentially a first-round pick where he could get a star to throw to.
All right, a couple more people weighing in on the Lions here on the live chat. I haven't gone over to Facebook yet, but let's see. Indigo R says, why is it when everybody talks about Goff being sat, people always leave out that he broke his thumb? He had to get a rod put into it and had surgery and still played like 2 weeks later with that rod in it. Yeah, you're right. That was part of it. That was part of it. The thing is, he was still able to play, and they went with the backup over the guy that they had given the most money to, in NFL history at the time. So, I mean, that's the thing there. They obviously, there was something going on where they didn't like Goff. It wasn't just like, oh, the rod, we just think that we can bump up and improve our team a little bit with Matt Stafford. He was definitely on the out. Now, he couldn't throw the ball down the field. I mean, that's one part. But there was also something with his girlfriend. At least the rumors there.
I don't remember anything with a girlfriend being involved, and maybe you're right about this, but I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Sideshow Raj. Always good to see him in there. A YouTuber himself. Is that what we are? YouTubers?
Yeah, that's one way to put us. We're YouTubers.
Any chance Matt Stafford's number 9 gets retired?
Oh gosh.
You know what? I want to go to
yes,
Jellic.
yes.
Somebody objective. Oh yes, go ahead.
Yes, I think there is, but and that's because the Lions quarterback situation for years has been so bad. People always talk about Matt Stafford's the best quarterback the Lions have ever had, and that's not because he's been great. He's flat out average. It's because the rest of the quarterbacks have been average or worse. And he holds all these different records in Lions history. So, yeah, there's a chance. I mean, if they retire his number, it would be kind of like retiring Vinnie Johnson's number. Vinnie Johnson won some championships, but he was a backup guard for the Pistons. And retiring a guy who never won a playoff game, who was a 1.5-time Pro Bowler, who was never an All-Pro. It'd be SOL to me. But, yeah, I could see it happening. Sure, yeah. Why not?
If you just think about the last 20 years here, Calvin's disgruntled. Unless they give him his money, he ain't coming back and, having anything at the half. 20 years down the road, people love Matt Stafford, especially if he goes on and, win. I don't know if it matters if he goes on and wins in L.A., but it'll just be like, as much as we dealt with people that hated Matt Stafford, it was always, there were a lot of people that absolutely loved number 9.
Oh, yeah.
And I think 20 years down the line, Lions still haven't made the playoffs and everything else. They'll be like, man, that Matt Stafford era, that was the golden age for the Lions. Well, at least for those of us that were 20 or 30 at the time, I'll be dead by then.
Well, think about this. If Matt Stafford, even if Matt Stafford doesn't win the Super Bowl, if he stays with the Rams for the rest of his career, and let's say he's with the Rams for another 7 years, and in those 7 years, he leads the Rams to, let's say, 10 playoff victories, then wow. I'm just saying if. So that would mean that the rest of the Rams, their defense, the accompanying parts, they continue to draft well and put pieces around their quarterback like they were doing when Brad Holmes was there. If that continues to happen, and let's not forget that Jared Goff just won a playoff game with them 2 months ago. If he wins 10 playoff games over the next 7 years, then the Rams might want to retire his number, especially if he wins a Super Bowl or leads them to a Super Bowl. They'll want him to retire his number. So if he plays 7 good years there with 10 playoff wins, and they have his number retired, wouldn't it look kind of silly if the Lions say, hey, can you come over here after you did like 1% of all that so we can retire your number 2? That would make the Lions look pretty pathetic.
No, think about the Stafford girls. They'll be all like, 30 years old. They'll have their own kids, and Matt at that point, be in his 50s, and I could definitely see him retiring the number.
They won't remember their time in Detroit. They're all toddlers. They're gonna grow up in Los Angeles.
Kelly does a good job on social media. They'll see all those pictures. Jelinek loves the Kelly Stafford talk.
Yeah, and you do too. All right, let's turn the page to the third chapter. And when we turn the page to the third chapter, that gets us to more of the NFL, where you've got the Patriots, who've been big spenders in free agency following their 7-9 2020 season. They re-signed Cam Newton, 1 year, $14 million. They signed the first and second best free agent tight ends to $12.5 million per year deals. Hunter Henry, 3 years, $37.5 million. Jonnu Smith, 4 years, $50 million. They signed wide receiver Nelson Aguilar to 2 years, $26 million. They signed Matt Judon, an edge rusher, 4 years, $56 million. And then Kyle Van Noy. He was drafted by the Lions, traded to the Patriots, signed with the Dolphins, and after 1 year they cut him. He's back with the Patriots, 2 years, $13 million. Dennis, it's very unpatriot-like to go on a free agent spending spree like this, but here's the key question. After all these moves, are the Patriots back?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the two most important, the most important position in Cam Newton's a question mark. And I like Jonnu Smith. I like Hunter Henry. Both of those guys were hurt last year. Hopefully they come back, and that'd be nice at the tight end position. But I'm not doing. If Bill Belichick, thinks Nelson Aguilar is going to be like some number one wide receiver, who's their number one wide receiver?
Well, their number one, I would assume that Aguilar is, because last year their number one receiver was Jacoby Myers, and he had 59 catches for 729 yards, which is pretty bad for a number one receiver.
Yeah, there's just not a lot there that you're looking at that you like. They want N'Keal Harry and the Edelman. Maybe Edelman's ready. Is Edelman coming back? Maybe he's got another year, but I don't. There's still not great weapons that you look over there and say, yeah, you know what? This is still going to be a ground and pound team, and I just don't. I don't. Not like I see them advancing in the playoffs. Not a whole lot there for Bill Belichick, but it starts with the quarterback position. I think Cam can play a little bit better, especially since everybody's counting him out, and he's coming. The shoulder is a question mark, but he really didn't have the weapons. But these aren't great weapons that you're sitting around saying, "Oh yeah, let's go, man." He's just going to be able to, it's Nelson Aguilar all day. I don't see that. And the biggest part about that is like it is unpatriot. Like the Patriots, they had. Tom Brady, and Belichick was out there getting a bunch of nondescript guys that fit in. Now he's going out there and just, spending like a drunk sailor because he's mad because Tom Brady one-upped him. It feels like a panic move from Belichick to try to see if he can get back in the race to be, the greatest of all time in the NFL compared to Brady. And I don't think they're winning a playoff game. I don't think they're making the playoffs.
Well, if when you answer the question, or if the definition of back is being a Super Bowl champion or being one of the top 2 or 3 teams in football, I don't think the Patriots are back. But if the answer is can they compete for the AFC East crown, then I think the answer is yes. The Patriots are back. I think they will compete for the AFC East crown. I wouldn't be surprised if they win it. And I think there are a bunch of reasons to go to come to that conclusion. I mean, first of all, the Patriots had a down year, but it's not like they were the same old Lions and they won 3 or 4 games. They were 7-9. So they had an average season for the most part, and to be a division title contender, they need to win about 4 more games, and I think that's feasible with some of the changes that you'll see in the 2021 season. Second of all, they were 27th in total yards last year, and I think that was largely because they had no weapons. Like you mentioned, Myers, and they didn't have a strong running game. I mean, who was Cam Newton really supposed to throw the ball to? Now he's got at least a decent wide receiver in Nelson Aguilar. Not a true number one, but he's got a decent wide receiver. And he doesn't have the number 1 tight end in football. That's Travis Kelce. He doesn't have number 2. That's Kittle. But, he's probably got 2 out of the top 5 or 6 by getting the top 2 free agent tight ends with Jonnu
You didn't
Smith.
have Hawkinson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Doesn't have TJ Hawkinson. It doesn't have slippery finger tight end Eric Ebron either. But maybe these guys could be 5th and 6th. But, I mean, when you look at having at how last year's top tight end for the Patriots was Ryan Izzo, 13 catches, 199 yards, and now you've got yourself 2 Pro Bowl caliber tight ends with Henry and Smith. That's a big jump up, and I think the Patriots are hoping that this could be like Aaron Hernandez and Gronk, minus one of them going around committing a whole bunch of murders and the other one getting injured. So when you look at that, I mean, I think the Patriots right now have the number 1 tight end group in the NFL. That is clear. And if one of them gets hurt, you still get yourself a star tight end. If both are healthy, they're in great position. The third reason is because, let's not forget, the Patriots led the NFL in COVID-19 opt-outs. They still had a 7-9 year despite one of their offensive tackles, Marcus Cannon, skipping the season, Dante Hightower, linebacker, skipping the season, Patrick Chung, safety, skipping the season. They're all coming back. So you got Hightower back, Chung back, you bring in Van Noy, you bring in Judon to a team that was 7th in points allowed per game. Now all of a sudden you got to figure they're going to be top 5, maybe top 3. I think that's enough to get the Patriots to go from a 7-win team to an 11-win team, and that's going to be enough to compete, not only to get them to the playoffs, but to compete for the AFC East crown.
Yeah, I'm not as high on him as you. So, there you go.
That's for certain. Well, I'll tell you this. NFL GMs are certainly not as high on Deshaun Watson as they were a week ago because we know that the offseason has been loaded with lots of talk of Watson wanting to be traded away because he didn't like the way the Texans were running their organization. And up until the last couple of days, it's been about who's going to want to trade a heck of a lot for him. On Tuesday, we had a comment come in saying, well, if the Lions wanted to get him, what would they have to trade for him? But in the last 48 hours, it went from 1 accuser to 3 accusers. And now the Busby law firm posted on Instagram today that they have filed 3 lawsuits against Watson so far, but 9 women have hired their firm to bring cases against Watson for some sort of sexual misconduct allegations. The latest to officially come through was an allegation of Watson forcing a woman to give oral sex after massage therapy. So whether it's 1, whether it's 3, whether it's 9, certainly with a lot of them piling up, Deshaun Watson's view in the public eye is a lot different than it was 48 and certainly 72 hours ago. From a non-football and from a football perspective, Dennis, what do you make of these allegations surrounding Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, well, you hate to see anything like this because immediately, somebody's lying. It's either Deshaun Watson or you got a bunch of women lying. You don't like either of those situations. You want justice to be served, whichever way it's going to happen here. We know how it can play out. It can be a long time, but I want to see what the connection here, how many, like if this is all under the same roof, that kind of thing. But 1, 2, 3, 9. We saw this with, down the line with Bill Cosby. Like even before he went to trial, it was pretty obvious. Like one person, you can have a he said, she said. 2 people is kind of like, but once you start, getting a bunch of allegations coming your way, that's a lot of smoke. So I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm just saying that it certainly doesn't look good for him. I know this, man. We're in a Me Too world, and we've seen this play out in different situations where I just remember the Michigan State situation where there are a lot of allegations coming from Michigan State. And, Michigan State fans, this has already been gone through the justice system. And they were right about that. But the part was that we were going to see, like, were there going to be other women that were coming forward? Was the woman and the mother who there was was somebody that worked for Michigan State saying they didn't go to the police and they handed it all through the basketball office. Man, there were plenty of people that could have stepped forward and said, you know what, Michigan State, you guys did. And you know what? Nobody did after that. And, so that made Michigan State look really bad. But as the weeks and months, you can say the damage was done. In some ways it was. But after the weeks and months went on, it wasn't as bad. You didn't have people stepping forward. So you got to let this play out in the courts. But when it comes to you hear people saying, I've seen this at least online, like, oh, this is damage control. People planting this to try to get them. I don't know about any of that kind of stuff. So, planning stories and people making this up to try to get them in Houston. You take these things very seriously and see what happens, with how it proceeds through the courts.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't appear that he's facing any criminal allegations right now. They're all civil allegations, but I mean, from a football's perspective, we know the NFL is already conducting their investigation. When I see cases like this, whether it's for Deshaun Watson or it's for others who've been in the media, like Bill Cosby, like former President Trump, like current New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, when I hear one allegation, I'm a little bit shocked, and I wonder if it's true. And then when I see a second or third allegation, I'm thinking, wow, there's some smoke to this. Perhaps there's something to it. But then, when you see like 9 potentially here, then you know that the likelihood continues to grow that Watson is some level of sexual predator. We don't know that to be true, but just looking at what happened most recently with Andrew Cuomo. First, you have one allegation, then you have 2 or 3, and you had a woman going on TV giving an interview, and now there's a whole lot more women coming out. Obviously, there are various degrees of sexual misconduct. There's a difference between grabbing some ass and forcibly kissing and forcibly raping. And, when I think a lot of us saw the third allegation today about oral sex being forced to perform after a massage therapy session, that was probably a big red flag for a lot of us. Like, whoa, this is different than perhaps some touching after massage therapy, which is also inappropriate. You also have to remember that for a lot of women, they're too scared to come forward because they think no one will believe them, particularly if there's a public figure like a politician or a pro athlete involved. But when that first comes forward, they realize they weren't the only one. They're more likely to believe. And then you see 1, 2, 3, 9. And I think that Watson is in a really bad situation because of these allegations. And it's we're going to have to see how these investigations move forward. But it doesn't look good for him right now. And from a football perspective, I can say that one of my first thoughts was, I wonder if this was planted by Watson to try to lower his trade value so he could get traded out. But obviously he wouldn't plant 3 stories, with one of them being forcible oral sex to get out. And he certainly wouldn't plant 9 to get him out. Then I thought, well, would the Texans plant this? No. So I think this probably has some legs to it. And I suspect that Watson on week 1 of the NFL season will not be in uniform and will not be taking a snap.
Yeah, well, I would also bet that at this point right now, we're not going to see anybody trading, a treasure trove of picks and former number 1 quarterbacks for him with this hanging over his head. So you're right about that. All right, before we move on, and we got a bracket, another bracket, NCAA tournament bracket to put up, a little bit like we had on Tuesday. Buzzy on YouTube on the live chat says, I bet Cam has more combined TDs than Goff has passing. Now, look, you're
talking about from 2020 or in his entire career? Because Cam Newton...
He's talking about this upcoming year. He's
okay.
He wants to bet. Well, which side would you take? More
I would
passing TDs for Cam or for your boy Goff?
Cam. I would take Cam. Yeah. I mean, he's got now
too.
2 premium red zone threats. He's got a defense that's going to get the offense off the field for the opposition and put the ball back in his hands. And Goff has no weapons right now outside of his tight end, T.J. Hawkinson. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Trey Lance will be playing by game 8 for the Lions.
There's that, too.
Or whoever the rookie is. Key says the Lions drafted because he knew he was a winner based on was raised in his career at Clemson, and I knew the Lions would get rid of Stafford. Another reason I hate the Lions. He's talking about Watson. He wanted the Lions to draft him. All right, are we before we go to the next chapter, are we getting our bracket up here? How are we doing this, Chet?
Yeah, we can put the bracket up. On Tuesday, we had a bracket that we posted for the top redheads because St. Patrick's Day was the next day, and just about everybody loves beer. So we had our intern Brian Jelinek make a bracket with the top 16 beers, and there you can see 1 seed Stella Artois, 16 seed Yingling, and the number 1 seed does not get upset. 8 seed Dos Equis beats out number 9 seed Bud Light. So going chalk so far. 4 seed.
Lights are the tough ones to put in there. There's so many of them, but he went with the popular ones. You're doing a good job, Jelinek. I'm feeling your beer palate. Keep going, chat.
4 seed Bell's Two Hearted over Pabst Blue Ribbon. Or no, yeah, Bell's Two Hearted over 13 seed Pabst Blue Ribbon. And it's kind of hard to read this. Sam Adams Boston Lager, the 15 seed over 12 seed. Or no, Bell's Oberon, the 12 seed, beats out the number 5 seed Sam Adams Boston Lager.
Man, I could have made this one up. I'm right with them. I'm in lockstep, man. Let's see if there's any ones, man. I'm an Art Stella fan myself. You know what? I would have had Oberon over Two Hearted myself, and that's a tough game. That probably went into overtime.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Two Hearted beats out Bell's Oberon in the Elite Eight, and Stella Artois goes to the Final Four as well, taking out Dos Equis. On the right side of the bracket, you got number 2 seed Guinness over 15 seed Budweiser. So Budweiser and Bud Light out in the first round. 7 seed Heineken upset by Bell Amber Ale, the 10 seed. You got Founders All Day IPA, the 3 seed, taking out 14 seed Miller Lite. And New Belgium Fat Tire, the 6 seed, over Busch, the 11 seed. What do you think about those?
Well, I don't know. Busch must have made a late run there. That's like some old school putting Busch in there. I appreciate it. It's kind of like UCLA, coming back and making a run here. I like all of the Bell's beers, so I'm with him on that. I would put a championship of the Amber Ale against Oberon myself, and would have Oberon cutting down the nets. But for me, I had to go back. My Final Four. There's a beer called Anchor Steam that's out. It's a California beer, and now I just show my age here. Back when not Michelob Light or Michelob Ultra, but originally Michelob just had a straight up Michelob, and that beer is awesome. I don't think they make it anymore, so it's tough. I went to a New Holland beer that's out of Michigan called Full Circle that I really like. I'm going to put them into my Final Four. And one that nobody's heard of because it's brewed in England. I don't think they have it over here, but it's a bitter beer called Theakston, and that is my favorite beer of all time. But all of these right here, I think Jelinek showing his guns, man, coming out, knocking that one right down the middle, 300 yards. What did you think, chap?
Well, he missed all of my top 4 beers. None of the beers that he put in the Final Four would make my list. My number 1 seed that I would have winning it all would be A&W. You can't miss that beer. It's a beer from the roots. My number 4 seed would be Barks. That's a quality beer, but I've got A&W taking out Barks. My number 3 seed would actually be Mug. That's a nice popular beer, another one from the roots. And then my number 2 seed is one that a lot of people have not tried, but it's from the Maumee Bay Brew Pub in Toledo, Ohio. When I used to work down there, they were a sponsor for my show. And not only do they brew alcoholic beer, but they brew root beer as well. They're my number 2 seed, so I would have A&W taking down the number 2 seed Maumee Bay Brew Pub in the championship game. You got to give some love to root beer out there because at least root beer tastes good.
Well, you know what, Chap? For those watching here that don't know, Chapman does not like beer.
Unless it's a beer from the roots.
The only thing I can say, Chap, to tie it in to what's going on is that there was one St. Patrick's Day not so long ago that we had some root beer schnapps and the shots, and we were dropping them in the beers. Was that Boilermakers? And pounding those down on some St. Patrick's Day. I was hungover for about 4 days after that. But But there you go. There's some root beer schnapps in a beer. I think you'd like it. You get the root. It tastes like root beer. You just have to drink it really fast.
Yeah, I've got no interest in any beer unless it's from the roots and only from the roots. You don't need to water it down with Guinness or Miller Lite or Fat Tire or some other crap like that. Beer is disgusting.
But you've had a Boilermaker before, right? And I don't know if the Boilermaker might not be maybe a Boilermaker's any shot dropped in there. But have you ever had a root beer schnapps dropped in a beer?
No, because it's dropped in a beer. Ugh. I don't drink beer. The last time I had beer was sophomore year of college. It was September. I said to myself, all right, I'm going to this house party. All my friends freshman year were trying to get me to drink beer, and I tried it. I didn't like it. I'm going to try to drink this beer. I went over to the tap. I got a Dixie cup, filled it up to the brim with beer, and I took about 4 or 5 sips of it. It went from this high to this high, and I was like, what the heck am I doing? This is disgusting. I poured the rest of it into my friend's cup and never touched any beer after that.
It's an acquired taste, That's kind of
that's what everybody says. Why do I have to acquire a taste? It's either nasty or it's good, and it's nasty.
Well, because you're just going to go on and drink root beer for the rest of your life. It's kind of nice to be able to develop, different palates and I didn't like oysters 20 years ago, but horseradish and Tabasco sauce on those oysters, and it's pretty awesome. I do remember, chap. I'm trying to see if I can remember the beer here.
How about rum punch? How about a Captain and Coke? How about a cranberry and vodka? Those taste good.
Those are all fine, but I'm going to take it to Happy Valley. The first time that I ever went to Happy Valley, I went to a bar right on the main. There's to me, it's only one street there. I'm trying to remember. Gigantic street there where all the bars are.
Beaver Avenue or College Avenue.
That makes sense. But you go downstairs. It was downstairs. It was like somebody's basement.
Probably the Rathskeller.
Rathskeller, and the only beers you got were cases. Like you'd say, I'll take. They just give you a case of beer, and I think it was Rolling Rock is what they're drinking there, but they're not. I think they're like 6 ounces. But everybody says, had a case of beer. You ever went to the Rathskeller?
I think I might have went like once or twice, but they specialize in beer, so that was not for me.
That makes sense.
I think I had a friend that used to be a bouncer there.
Yeah,
So.
He might have thrown me out that particular year. That was 99.
No, he was in middle school or high school then. So I don't think he threw you out. All right, let's turn the page to the 4th chapter.
That gets us to a team that got a W last night. I watched them take down the Raptors at the Little Caesars Arena. That's your Detroit Pistons. They got a game coming up against the Rockets, and this is going to be a battle for maybe the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. So what are the rooting interests here when we have the Pistons take on the Rockets?
Well, you're right about there being draft implications here because as of right now, the Pistons or the Minnesota Timberwolves have the worst record in the league by 2 games. The Pistons have the 2nd worst record there, and the Rockets are only a half game behind the Pistons with the number 3 seed after losing 18 consecutive games. Think about that. Lose 18 consecutive games. You don't even have the worst record in the league. But this is going to have draft implications because if the Pistons win tomorrow, then the Rockets will be in sole possession of the 2nd worst record in the NBA, and the bottom will continue to fall out. But if the Pistons win, then there'll be a game and a half up, and perhaps this would propel the Rockets to go on some sort of winning streak or at least play like 400 basketball for the rest of the year to put some distance between the Pistons and the Rockets. I mean, just based on the last 18 games, you would assume that the Rockets are not going to win tomorrow, especially considering they've lost 11 in a row by double digits. I mean, they're a huge mess. They've been a mess all season long, but particularly when Harden and Westbrook were traded away, they got a heck of a lot worse. Cousins said, "Get me out of here." PJ Tucker just got traded yesterday, the day before, and he was apparently a last-minute no-show after the first game of the All-Star break, and his coach didn't even know about it. Injuries are a huge issue. It's not just Christian Wood, who missed the first 17 games of the losing streak. He came back yesterday, and they still got crushed. But there's a lot more to that. Eric Gordon has been in and out, and he's going to be out for the next month. Oladipo and Wall have been in and out of the lineup. They both missed yesterday's game. So you don't know who's going to be handling the rock for them at any point in time. If the Pistons tomorrow face a team that is going to have Christian Wood, but is not going to have Oladipo, is not going to have Wall, then the Pistons better win that game, and they will win that game by double digits. If Oladipo and Wall do play, then their top three players in Wood, Oladipo, and Wall are going to be better than anybody that the Pistons have outside of perhaps Jeremy Grant. The problem is for the Rockets, they don't have any chemistry because these guys are in and out of the lineup, and they've just flat out quit on the season. The Pistons are in jeopardy of winning this game, and hurting their draft positioning, but I could see them losing this game as well. I think you should. It's tough in terms of rooting interest because at one point you don't want the Pistons to be the team that ends the Rockets' 18-game losing streak, but you want that draft positioning, and the Rockets are a huge threat here. So I'm a little bit torn here. I would probably want the Pistons to win.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to say, like, Detroit sports blows, and it really sucks. This is front and center why, man. I've watched the last couple games for the Pistons here, and, you know, you watch them, and you know it's necessary that they're going to tank, but you like a couple of the players on there. I mean, it was nice seeing Bay and Isaiah Stewart last night, you know, play well against the Raptors, but in the end, you know, I'm hoping that the Raptors win the game. I'm like, Powell, drop a couple of other threes on them, you know, so you can win this game. But you know what? It's been like that for like 5 years for the Pistons. Like, I root for the other teams more than I root for the Pistons in the last 5 years. It's been the same thing with the Red Wings, been the same thing with the Tigers. At some point, you know, it's I say it's not like that with the Lions, but after like the first three or four games, it is like that. I root against all Detroit sports teams. It sucks.
Yeah, yes,
I mean,
it does.
so like, you know, here I am. I'm going to tune into that game, and so then I'm going to, you know.
Well,
feel
you're not
bad
because
if
of
the
March
Pistons-
Madness.
Oh yeah, good point.
It's the
Next 4
perfect
days.
day to have this game.
Yeah.
Like a
gonna
perfect,
pay
the
attention.
second worst and third worst team. If the Rockets were to win this game, nobody's going to care about it. And the Pistons were to lose this game and end that streak, the Pistons PR would say, "Hey, look at March Madness. Look over there."
Yeah, good point. Before we go any further, we give some bets. Let's bring in the man who made up the brackets over these last 2 days. We crowned Jessica Chastain the first annual redhead of the fifth chapter for St. Patrick's Day, and we need to crown a beer here. And I want to crown Oberon, and Chap wants to crown root beer, and
A&W.
we'll see. Jelinek, out of your 4 that you had in there, you did a hell of a job. How are you advancing those beers to the championship? Who's coming out on top?
So the number 1 overall seed, Stella Artois, is going to the finals, as well as the Bell's Amber Ale. I always take red ales. I love them. Doesn't matter the temperature. Doesn't matter where I'm at. Just I'm always drinking red ales. So it's tough because Stella Artois is always the go-to. It's never bad, but same with the red. So I think I got to go Stella at the end of the day. It's never bad.
Well, since Chapman doesn't know anything about beer,
I do. It's nasty.
I am going to ride with you on Stella. Stella's the official beer here, the winner of the first
the official beer of the
fifth chapter. Yeah, that's it right now.
Okay.
I like it.
Wait, so
with root beer going to Chapman.
Chapman, you haven't had beer since your sophomore year of college?
It's disgusting. Like I accidentally tasted it because in 2008 I was a minor league broadcaster for the Florida State League champion Daytona Cubs, and during the celebration, they're pouring beer and everybody. That included the broadcasters. So, some of it accidentally, got in my mouth, but I wasn't like, yeah, let me gargle it. No, I was like, get off my tongue. And, was continuing to celebrate and continuing to interview the players. But other than that, no, beer does not pass my lips unless it's a beer from the roots.
Okay, you gotta stop saying beer from the roots. It sounds so pretentious.
That's exactly. It makes it sound like it's got some more substance, it's more quality than your little beer from the hops. And you know what? Both of our beers are made with corn syrup.
It's a road that we just need to steer off of when it comes to beer and Chapman talk. What John? Like you've watched this whole show. You've been doing a great job in the chat here. What about it? You know, the NCAA tournament. Are you a tournament guy? I love your Golden Bear hat, by the way. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It's limited edition, so
That's
I got to rep it at all times. The rope hat's coming back. You know, I totally forgot about filling out my bracket until this morning, and I just looked it over again, and I have all the 1 seeds in the Final Four. So that's obviously not going to happen.
You got to scrap it. You got to start all over.
I got to start all over. But I do have, regardless, Illinois is going to win it all. So I'm all in on the Fighting Illini.
I can see that. I had them losing to Gonzaga. I could see it.
Now, I'm gonna take the lazy route. Gonzaga doesn't play anybody. I'm totally gonna take that.
When they did play a whole bunch of teams at the beginning of the year, they blew out everybody except for West Virginia, which they beat by like 5. They crushed Iowa. I mean, they just steamroll everybody.
All right, I have a feeling I can almost make the argument they're not going to be a Final Four team. I can't back that up. I'm just going to say it.
I have a friend, I told you about the one that plays the multiple bracket guy. Like, you know, he plays 10-15. He always acts like he's got the great bracket. But I also have a Chalk, my friend we call Chalk, and he always takes all of the number 1 seeds. But
Is it President Obama? Is that your friend?
But you know what? I have to give him credit. He has won way more brackets than I have by going with the Chalk brackets. I mean, he has been able to find a way to win it, and you know he only plays the 1 bracket there. So you know, I would never advocate just going with all the 1 seeds. I think it's only happened 1 time, right?
It happened a couple of years ago. But
yeah, I think that's the only time.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
I want to leave you guys with one sizzling take before I sign off. Oh. When you guys talked about Stafford possibly having his number retired, I feel like it's almost like retiring Jay Cutler's number for the Chicago Bears. Stafford didn't do a damn thing in Detroit.
Well, the difference is that Stafford has all these records because there aren't any other QBs of substance, and the Bears have had some QBs of substance in their past. That I think would be the key difference.
They had 1, Jim McMahon.
Yeah, they've had McMahon. Who was the quarterback that took him to the Super Bowl under Lovie Smith?
Rex Grossman.
Yeah, he's not getting his number retired.
I don't know. There's no way 9 can get retired. I don't know. I just feel like the city of Detroit will do it, but I can't support that.
Yeah.
I can't either. It's weak.
Yeah, it's totally weak. But
especially
especially
if he does what I think he could do, and that's win multiple playoff games in Los Angeles. If he has a more storied career as a Ram than he does as a same old Lion, it would look pretty sad for him to have his number raised to the rafters next to like division championships or conference championships or a Super Bowl championship, and then he comes back to the Lions and it's like, hey, playoff appearance. You know, the 0 playoff wins. Let's raise his number to the rafters.
I don't know. He's out of here. I'm not rooting for him anymore. I'm all in on Goff. All in.
That's a hot take. That's your hottest take.
That's it. I'm all in. All in.
All right, Brian. Great job, and you know those brackets were awesome. Stella Artois, the official beer of the 5th chapter, and
A&W, the official beer from the roots of the 5th chapter. You guys don't like A&W?
I'm not.
I don't like root
going
beer.
out of my way to drink root beer. Absolutely not.
Gosh.
Unless it's a schnapps that's dropped in the middle of a beer, that would be it for me.
Agreed.
All right, well, thanks for the time, Brian. Good job, as always. All right, Dennis, now let's turn the page to the 5th chapter, and that is for the major wager. Dennis, obviously we've got the big game tomorrow between the Pistons and the Rockets, but of course we've also got March Madness. Remind us of what you picked on Tuesday. I think it was the Michigan State game, and what you're looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, I picked the Michigan State game for tonight. State was -2. It's gone up to -2.5 now, but I'll still take it. Also, I've got Houston a couple weeks back, or at least more than a week ago. I picked Houston to get to the Final Four, even though I didn't do it in my bracket. They were plus 400 at that point. I put the money down on Houston. I just want to tell everybody about a pool. While I'm not going to be involved in a bracket, I am involved in a survivor pool, and I did this one last year, and I love it. Not today. I don't count the play-in games, but starting tomorrow and the next 4 days, and then next week, every time there's NCAA tournament day, you just pick a team to win. But you can't pick that team. Once you pick them, you can't pick them again. And
oh yeah, I'm in one of those.
The lower the seed, you get the points. So, you pick an 8-9 and you win it, you get those 8 points. So you only get that 1 point, for the 1 seeds. It's an awesome way to go about it. It gets you that team every day. It's something a little bit different. Going to the next one, and try that one at home. I'm picking Tennessee tomorrow as a 5 seed. So I'll be crying if Tennessee goes down in there, because that's the only pool that I'm in. They're taking on Oregon State. It was picked last, but ended up winning that Pac-12 tournament. So that's how they got their automatic bid.
Yeah, well, Oregon State is one of my upset picks in the first round because of what they did in the Pac-12 tournament. So I would wish you luck, but I kind of don't want you to win.
All right.
As far as my major wager is concerned, first want to point your attention to the left side of the screen. I know a lot of folks are getting into sports betting right now. If you want to get some free betting money, then perhaps use the DraftKings Sportsbook. And as you can see down there in the comments section, whether you're looking at Facebook or you're looking at YouTube, there's a link for you to click on, particularly if you're using your phone. If you click on that link and then download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and deposit, you can get some free sports betting money. So if you want your own money to bet on, plus some additional free money to bet, use this DraftKings Sportsbook and use the code that you see down there in the comments to help you with your sports betting. On Tuesday, I went with the obvious pick. I went with the Atlanta Hawks minus 9.5 to cover against the Rockets, and they did. And by the way, I also went with the Rockets to not cover last night and made money on them because that's just what you do. Today, I picked the Orlando Magic plus 160 against the New York Knicks. And the reason I did so is because Aaron Gordon, I saw, might be returning for the game today. He had been out for a long period of time, and actually he has returned. He had 6 points in the first half, and I saw that the Knicks, they were without a ton of their point guards. Emmanuel Quickley, the rookie point guard, out. They had Alfred Payton with the crazy hair, but is not so crazy anymore, out.
No.
Derrick Rose, we know that he had lots of injury issues with the Pistons. He's not playing in the game either. And at the half, it is a 45-44 Knicks lead over the Orlando Magic. So it's very close, but there is an opportunity for the Orlando Magic to make me a little bit of money.
All right, great job. Coming up on Tuesday's Fifth Chapter, what's Michigan and Michigan State's road look like in the NCAA tournament now?
If they're still playing.
We'll get to it on Tuesday. Thanks to Brian Jelinek. And for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. Have a great night. Thanks for watching. See ya.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter. Huh.